What if the moment you think is too small is exactly where something extraordinary begins? What if the need you feel embarrassed about is the very place where transformation happens? And what if miracles don't always start with something big, but with something simple, almost unnoticed? There is a story in the Gospel of John that feels both ordinary and profound at the same time. It doesn't take place in a temple or on a mountain or in front of a crowd seeking healing. It happens at a wedding, a celebration, a moment of joy, a gathering filled with people, laughter and expectation. And yet in the middle of that celebration, something goes wrong. The wine runs out. At first, it might not seem like a big deal, but in that culture, at that time, this was more than just a small inconvenience. It was a serious social problem. A wedding feast was meant to reflect honor, generosity, and hospitality. Running out of wine could bring embarrassment, even shame to the hosts. The joy of the moment begins to fade. What was meant to be a celebration is now at risk of becoming a quiet disaster. And it is in this moment, this very human, very real situation, that something incredible begins. Jesus is there, not as the center of attention, not performing for a crowd, just present among the people, part of the moment. And his mother notices the problem. She comes to him and simply says they have no more wine. No long explanation, no detailed request, just a statement, a recognition of need. And Jesus responds in a way that might feel unexpected. "Woman, why do you involve me? My hour has not yet come." At first glance, this response seems distant, almost like hesitation, as if he is saying, "This is not the time." But then something interesting happens. His mother turns to the servants and says, "Do whatever he tells you." She doesn't argue, she doesn't question, she trusts. There is a quiet confidence in her words. Do whatever he tells you. That sentence carries weight, because it reflects something deeper than understanding. It reflects faith. A willingness to trust even when the outcome is not clear, even when the timing seems uncertain, even when the situation feels small. And then Jesus gives an instruction. There are 6 stone water jars nearby used for ceremonial washing, large jars each holding a significant amount. He tells the servants, "Fill the jars with water." That's it. No explanation, no visible sign of what is about to happen. Just a simple command. Fill them with water, and the servants obey. They fill them to the brim. This detail matters to the top. Nothing held back, complete obedience. And then Jesus says something even more surprising. "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." At this point, nothing visible has changed. It is still water. There is no dramatic moment, no visible transformation yet. Just a step of faith, a decision to follow through. And the servants do it. They take it to the master of the banquet. And then something has changed. The master tastes the water that has now become wine. Not just any wine, good wine. In fact, better than what was served at the beginning. And he calls the bridegroom aside and says, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink, but you have saved the best till now." This is unexpected, because the problem was not just solved, it was transformed. What was lacking is now abundant. What was ordinary is now extraordinary. What was a moment of potential embarrassment has become a moment of honor. And most people at the wedding don't even know what happened. Only a few. The servants, the disciples, those who were close enough to see. And this is described as the first sign through which Jesus revealed his glory. Not in a grand public display, but in a quiet moment, at a wedding, through a simple act. This tells us something important. Miracles don't always begin in obvious places. They often begin in ordinary moments, in everyday situations, in places where something feels small, unnoticed, or even insignificant. And sometimes they begin with a problem, a lack, a need, something missing. They have no more wine. That statement could represent so many things in life. A situation where something runs out. Energy, hope, direction, peace, joy. Moments where you realize that what you have is not enough. And those moments can feel uncomfortable, even embarrassing. Like something is lacking in a place where everything is supposed to be fine. But what this story shows is that those moments are not the end. They can be the beginning of transformation, the beginning of something new. But there is a process. First, there is recognition. Someone notices the need. Then there is trust. Do whatever he tells you. Then there is obedience, filling the jars even when it doesn't make sense, even when the outcome is not visible. And then there is transformation. Water becomes wine. Ordinary becomes extraordinary. And what is interesting is that the miracle happens in the middle of the process, not at the beginning, not before the action, but during, as the servants obey, as they move forward, as they take the step. This is often how transformation works, not always instantly, not always visibly, but in the process, as you move, as you trust, as you follow through. There is also something symbolic about the jars. They were used for ceremonial washing, a system of external cleansing, and now they are filled with something new, something better. This points to a deeper shift, from external forms to internal transformation, from ritual to reality, from something temporary to something meaningful. And the fact that the wine is better than what came before is significant, because it shows that what comes through transformation is not just equal, it is greater, better, more complete. This is not about replacing something with something similar. It is about bringing something new, something improved, something that changes the experience entirely. And this is why this moment matters, because it is not just about a wedding. It is about a pattern, a way of understanding how change happens, how transformation begins, how something lacking can become something abundant. But it also requires participation. The servants had to fill the jars, they had to carry the water, they had to take the step. They didn't create the miracle, but they were part of the process. And maybe that is something to reflect on. Where are you being asked to take a step? Where is there something that doesn't make complete sense, but still calls for action? Where is there an opportunity to trust, even without full understanding? Because sometimes the miracle is not just in the outcome. It is in the process of moving forward, in the willingness to act, in the choice to trust. And maybe the most powerful part of this story is how quiet it is. No announcement, no crowd reaction, no public display, just a transformation that reveals something deeper. And those who are paying attention begin to see, begin to believe. John says that through this sign, Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Not because of words, but because of what they witnessed, because of what they experienced, because something real happened. And that is often how belief grows. Not just through hearing, but through seeing, through experiencing, through recognizing that something has changed, something is different, something is real, and it begins to shift how you see everything else. This story invites a question. Where in your life does something feel like it has run out? Where does something feel lacking? Where does something feel incomplete? And instead of seeing that as the end, what if it is the beginning of something being transformed, the beginning of something better? But it starts with recognition, with trust, with action, with being willing to take the step, even when it feels simple, even when it feels small, even when it doesn't make complete sense. Because sometimes the most powerful transformations begin with the simplest acts. Filling a jar, taking a step, trusting a word. And in that process, something changes. Something becomes more than it was before. Something that brings not just solution, but abundance. Not just enough, but more than enough. And maybe, just maybe, what feels like an ordinary moment right now is the place where something extraordinary is about to begin. Thank you for watching this video. If this message spoke to you, take a moment to like, follow the channel, and share this video with someone who may need to hear it.